Elizabeth Bathory. She wasn't a creature of myth. She was real. A noblewoman with a castle, servants, and a thirst for blood. They say she bathed in it to stay young, that her victims numbered in the hundreds. But was Elizabeth Bathory a vampire, or something even worse? Elizabeth Bathory was born in 1560 into one of the most powerful families in Hungary. Her bloodline was stacked with royalty, warriors, and politicians. She grew up surrounded by privilege, but also by violence and superstition. The Bathorys ruled lands, commanded armies, and whispered about dark things behind closed doors. As a child, Elizabeth was reportedly intelligent and beautiful, but she also suffered from seizures. Some say she was treated with blood from servants as a folk remedy. Whether that's true or not, it's a chilling detail that sets the tone for what's to come. She was married at 15 to Count Frank the Dasty, a brutal soldier nicknamed the Black Knight of Hungary. Their union wasn't just romantic, it was strategic. Frank taught Elizabeth torture techniques used in war, and together they ruled Countess Castle, a fortress perched on a lonely hill. The castle itself was eerie, cold stone walls, underground tunnels, and rooms that seemed designed for secrecy. It was the perfect setting for horror. And when Frank died in 1604, Elizabeth was left alone with power, wealth, and no one to stop her. That's when the darkness truly began. Elizabeth's behavior changed. She became more reclusive, more controlling, and more cruel. Young girls from nearby villages were invited to the castle to work as maids or servants. Most never returned. Elizabeth would beat girls until their skin split. She'd burn them with hot irons, stab them with needles, and force them to eat their own flesh. But the most disturbing claim, that she bathed in their blood. One servant testified that Elizabeth believed blood kept her young. She'd smear it on her face like a beauty mask. Others said she drank it. The idea of blood as a fountain of youth wasn't new. Legends of vampires and immortality were common in Eastern Europe. But Elizabeth didn't just believe the myth, she lived it. The number of victims is debated. Some say 80, others claim over 300. One infamous document, a supposed diary, listed 650 names. That diary was never found, but the rumor stuck. Elizabeth didn't act alone. She had a crew of loyal servants who helped lure, torture, and dispose of the girls. They were later arrested and confessed under torture, describing rituals that sounded more like satanic ceremonies than punishments. Villages began to whisper, girls were disappearing. Screams echoed from the castle at night. Blood stained the snow outside the gates. But no one dared confront her. She was a countess, protected by her title and her family's influence. Elizabeth Bathory wasn't just a killer, she fit the mold of a vampire almost perfectly. Pale skin, reclusive lifestyle, obsession with youth, and a taste for blood. She avoided sunlight, lived in a cold stone castle, and surrounded herself with loyal followers who enabled her darkest desires. Eastern Europe was already steeped in vampire folklore. Stories of undead nobles who fed on the blood of the living were common. Villagers believed in spirits that rose from the graves, drained life from the young, and cursed entire towns. Elizabeth's actions mirrored these legends in eerie detail. Her victims were young, pure, and female, classic vampire prey. She allegedly bit them, drained them, and bathed in their blood. Her castle had secret passageways, torture chambers, and rooms that were permanently sealed after her arrest. Even her name, Bathory, echoes bath and bloody. And that's what makes her story so terrifying. She wasn't a creature of fiction, she was real, and she lived like a monster. But not everyone believes Elizabeth Bathory was guilty. Some historians argue she was framed, targeted by political enemies who wanted her land, her money, and her downfall. She was a powerful woman in a patriarchal society. Her wealth rivaled the king's. That made her dangerous. The Habsburg monarchy, which ruled the region, had every reason to take her down. And what better way than to accuse her of unspeakable crimes? Once the rumor spread, her reputation was ruined. There's also the question of mental illness. Elizabeth may have suffered from psychopathy, sadism, or trauma-induced madness. Her childhood was violent. Her marriage was brutal. Her isolation after Frank's death may have pushed her over the edge. But even if she was framed, the evidence is hard to ignore. Bodies were found, survivors testified, her servants confessed. So maybe she wasn't a vampire. Maybe she wasn't even the mastermind. But she was involved, and the blood on her hands, literal or metaphorical, was undeniable. In 1610, King Matthias II sent investigators to Countess castle. What they found was straight out of a nightmare. Bodies, dozens of them, some buried in shallow graves, others hidden in walls. A few were still alive, barely, covered in burns, cuts, and bruises. One girl had her mouth sewn shut, another had her eyes gouged out. The investigators interviewed villagers, servants, and survivors. The stories were consistent. Elizabeth tortured girls for pleasure, she drained their blood, she performed rituals, she kept a ledger of every victim. Her castle was searched. Secret rooms were discovered, torture devices were found, whips, branding, iron cages. One room was stained with blood from floor to ceiling. Her obsession with youth and beauty driving her to madness. The infamous diary, if it existed, was never found, but the testimonies were enough. Elizabeth was arrested, but she was never put on trial. Her status as a noblewoman protected her from public punishment. Instead, she was sentenced to house arrest, but this wasn't any cozy exile. Elizabeth Bathory was confined to a single room in her castle. The windows were bricked up, the doors were sealed, only a small slit remained for food and water. She lived like that for 4 years, alone in the dark with her memories, with her guilt, or maybe with her hunger. She reportedly paced the room endlessly, spoke to herself, scratched symbols into the walls. Some say she never slept. That she whispered to spirits, that she still believed she could live forever. She died in 1614. No final words, no confession, just silence. Her body was buried in the castle grounds, but later moved, possibly to hide it. Some say she was never buried at all, that her spirit still roams the halls, that she's still searching for youth, for blood. Elizabeth Bathory may be dead, or maybe not. Her legend lives on, in whispers, in nightmares, in vampire lore. Was she a monster, a myth, or something worse? This Halloween, remember, some monsters wear crowns, and some never die. Lock your doors, check your mirrors. She might still be thirsty.